We want to welcome you today for this webinar brought to you by the RBTC, the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center, and Advanced Logic Industries. Our speaker today, who represents Advanced Logic Industries, or ALI, is Parker Pearson, and she is the Vice President of Marketing. For more than 25 years, Advanced Logic Industries has been helping clients and businesses navigate and integrate IT services and solutions into their companies. Parker is just the right person to speak to us this morning about working remotely, as she has been effectively working in a distributed work environment since 2004. She will inform us this morning on best practices about going virtual and how to sustain it, and valuable online tools to consider. This is just a brief summary of where we're headed this morning, and we are grateful for her expertise and background in marketing and business development. I know we all are aware that with the sudden changes in our environment and in our world, it's imperative for all of us to adapt, change, and learn how to be effective in this new virtual space. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Parker.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hello. Welcome to today's session, The New Normal, Being Effective in a Work-at-Home Setting. I'm Parker Pearson, and I put together this presentation after getting really great feedback on an earlier raw version of this that got passed around on YouTube. And my hope is that each of you watching this live or on replay can borrow experience to adapt quickly to working from home. You may even find that you love it. But first, I've got a few housekeeping items to everybody on the live session. Everyone's audio is muted to help us conserve bandwidth. And your experience might be impacted by your local bandwidth issues. You might have some freeze, we might have some lag, and if that happens, I'm really sorry. I do have a pre-recorded video ready if that happens, and this one is being recorded as well. Everyone will get a link to the session. Please feel free to share it or replay it. Today, we're handling questions via the Q&A panel on your screen. To find it, look on the right-hand side. There should be a section called Q&A, and if it's not visible yet, look at the bottom of your screen and there's little circles. Look for the one with the chat bubble. Click that and it's going to launch the tools for this conference. Be sure to put your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat, but the Q&A box, and hit send. And we'll review those questions at the end of my remarks. And please feel free to put your questions in at any time. And lastly, as you exit the event, you're going to be directed to a quick feedback survey where you can also confirm the email address where you want me to send the recording link and information on the resources we've set up to help everyone as a follow-up. So let's dive in. Today's agenda, I'm going to cover the 5 key areas that I committed to in the invitation. Your workspace, best practices on video, staying engaged with your team, useful tools, and considerations for managers, and then most importantly, your questions. So let's get started. Very quickly, for those of you who aren't familiar with Advanced Logic, we're actually a family of 3 companies headquartered in this region. ALI provides IT services, Brush Mountain provides cloud and business continuity services, and Denoma Software is our software company. In fact, it's on the Denoma side where we're routinely connecting across time zones that we first started to see the implications of what was coming with COVID-19. We built each of these businesses for the past 10 years on a geodiverse strategy. So our workforce works at least part, if not full-time, from home. And we did it as a means to compete in a tight labor market. We also knew it would give us excellent business continuity. So what I'm sharing is based on the lessons we learned as we embraced a remote workforce. So everyone's likely seen this meme. Its humor lies not just in our love of Mike Myers' villain, but because from now, work from home was seen as less than, not really working. And that's not the case anymore. But in order for you to really nail working from home, the first step is setting up your home office to be your productivity and communications command center. So let's start with your physical setup. At a minimum, you're going to need adequate lighting, adequate power, including power protection, strip. Make sure that your Wi-Fi and cell signal is as strong as possible in the location you choose, and if it's at all possible, somewhere with a door. Also critical is that you have light in front of you. Don't sit with a window behind you, and do take a look at what is behind you, because that's what others are going to see in a lot of cases. So choose your spot carefully, or you might end up sharing just a little too much by what others will see. Some nice optional items: 2 screens if you can, one for video, one for content. And if it helps you stay focused, maybe a small music device if you can quickly pause it, like an Alexa or a Google Home device, because they're audio controlled. They also can be used as a timer to do focus sprints like the Pomodoro method. So I understand right now, especially with family and children, everybody being in the same spaces, creativity is going to need to be required. The photo here is a friend's wife who set up her home office in a tent off their back patio. Now, they live in California, so this is workable. My point is that you may have to get creative, both in terms of your workspace and your schedule. Those of you with children, you may have to schedule your activities and theirs around each other, and adjustment for everybody that real work is going on in the home. But given the ingenuity I've seen in the past 2 weeks, I've got faith that parents are going to ace this sooner rather than later and faster than our team did at first. So now that we've covered your workspace, let's move on to video conferencing. Once you get the hang of it, it's a powerful way to work. And it's normal for people to resist video and want to only do audio. I'm going to help you get past this common pushback, because there's some real rewards for embracing video that an audio call just doesn't do. By its very nature, video requires that people stay focused, pay attention, and engaged. Really hard to multitask or walk away from your desk when your camera is on. So as with your home office, success with video requires attention to just a couple of details. You do these things, you're going to look great and be more effective in your meetings. I thought y'all would enjoy this. So I can't stress it enough. Lighting. Make sure you've got a strong light in front of you. I use a professional ring light available on Amazon for less than $100, but a lamp without a shade can work in a pinch right now. If you watch me in the sidebar, I'm going to show you the difference when I turn my light off. Terrible, right? You can't see my expressions, and most important, you can't see my eyes. Being able to see the nuances of expression and body language are what make video so powerful. So related, don't sit with that back to the window. It'll throw your entire outline into shadow. You'll just become an outline. And it creates a really weird glare for those on the other end of the conference. As I've said, look at what's behind you. That's going to be on camera. Everyone understands we're working under kind of battlefield conditions, but you might want to change up what's visible. I've seen a lot of open closets, laundry, and more. Keep some tissues and a bottle of water handy, just like you do for a regular meeting. Audio is important. Make sure you're using a headset connected to your computer, just like this. One thing that's important is don't expect your computer to work like a speakerphone. You'll create a lot of feedback on the line. I recommend a pair of wired earbuds that have an inline microphone, just like this. They're inexpensive, and most of us have lots of them laying around because they come free with most smartphones. I avoid Bluetooth headsets and AirPods because they tend to run out of battery quickly and at unpredictable times. That's your choice. And lastly, all jokes aside, dress professionally, just like you would have done before this. Resist the temptation to stay in PJs. Getting dressed puts you kind of in work mode. And I recommend waiting a couple of weeks until you try the business up top and the casual on the bottom approach. Many of you are going to stand up unexpectedly on video, and you don't want to reveal too much in that moment. So now that I've covered home office and best practices for video, here's why I think that video can be such an important success factor for helping you navigate the new norm of working remotely. It's powerful. Right now, you're seeing me in a small sidebar, but when you're having your meetings one-to-one, it's really powerful. You get more data. If you only rely on audio, you're missing 75% of the conversation. You're missing the body language and the understanding of emotions that are going to be harder to pick up on audio only. The key is going to be to practice and get relaxed. So even if you have to write yourself a sticky note reminder, when you get on camera, smile, take a breath, and relax. You're going to be great. You're not the only one having to learn this stuff fast. Do experiment with your camera so it's at eye level. You want to make sure you're in the frame, and that avoids the up the nose view. I've yet to see anybody where that's their best look. Practice facing the camera. Resist the urge to look away or otherwise, turn your head. People are going to interpret that as being disinterested or unengaged, and that isn't what you mean to project. So practice facing front and arrange your screens if you have to. Turn off distractions. Cell phones, instant messaging, anything that might interrupt. You might even want to have a sign that goes on your door so others know you're on a conference call. I have a fun do not disturb door hanger that I use when I'm in the office to let others know that it's not okay to stick their head in just to ask a quick question. Practice your screen sharing. It's what you're going to be doing a lot of on web conferences. So be sure to go into your meeting with your computer desktop clear of anything extraneous. Close down your email so you don't accidentally reveal your inbox or have your notifications show up on the screen. And lastly, this is a big one. Mute yourself, except when you're talking. It keeps down the ambient noise on the call and it eliminates surprises for everyone. So adapting to this new norm is going to be a new skill for many. You and your colleagues aren't just adapting new technology, you're adapting a new work culture. So as everyone builds their skills over the coming weeks and months, there are a few tips to help you and, if applicable, your team to adapt. Be patient. As I said, everyone's learning. Some are going to take to this like a duck to water. Others are going to struggle. And if someone's having trouble, reassure them, back off, give them permission to slow down and kind of fix things themselves. Offer help if asked, but most people just need a moment. Whenever possible, keep meetings small, at least at first while everyone's kind of getting their skills up to speed. If you see something embarrassing, be understanding and maybe share that with a colleague offline if it's appropriate. Check in regularly, and I don't mean this just for managers, I mean for everyone. Take a few minutes during the day to reach out and just connect with your colleagues. That human connection's powerful, and many of you are used to getting the sense of community by being in the same place. And now you can still do that. You're just going to do it a little differently. If you stay engaged and connected with your colleagues, you'll find that being isolated isn't going to be an issue. Just be aware it can happen. And those of you who tend to be introverts, maybe exercise a little more outreach so you don't find yourself getting isolated. And lastly, you may want to use some tools for connection and collaboration when you're not in web conferences. We use a couple of tools. We have software that does one-to-one instant messaging, and it shows our real-time status. It actually shows when we're on the phone, what's on our, if we're busy in a meeting, or even if we're on a WebEx. So that way the team can see our availability in real time. We also use team collaboration software to communicate in larger groups. Speaking of software, I put together a list of some of the tools and applications that have been very helpful for us and you might need as you pivot to working remotely. Some are easy to get on an individual basis and some are meant for your company to decide, but here's a list of the items I really can't live without over and above web conferencing. So first is mobile email. Most of you probably have connected your corporate email to your smartphone. If you have this option and you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. Next is unified messaging. This is where you get your voicemail automatically sent to your email. And that way, when you get a voicemail on your office line, you know right away and can respond. Many people thought that voicemail was going the way of the dodo, but it's not, particularly in this current environment. Denoma has a unified messaging product, and we're really busy with requests to add or upgrade subscriptions. Plus, the visual voicemail transcription is pretty cool. The next is instant messaging. As I mentioned before, it's effective. It needs to be corporate-wide. So things like Teams, Slack, Jabber, all examples. Virtual, or what we call soft phones. Many modern phone systems enable you to run a piece of software on your computer that acts just like your normal office phone. You can actually make calls and receive calls. Talk to your IT staff and see if that's possible in your environment. Now might be the time to look at scheduling via the web and tools that you can use for that. As an example, Denoma relies on an inexpensive solution called Acuity to let people schedule software demos and installations, and they can do it via the web. We found it really helpful that it cut down on the back and forth emails, coordinating meeting times, even across time zones. So that might be something to check out. For personal task management, I'm a huge fan of the free version of the app Todoist. And for managing team projects, there's a number of cloud services out there. We've used Monday, but we've settled on Asana, and that coordinates group projects, complete with status updates and visual dashboards. I'd like to wrap up with a few considerations for those of you who are leading remote teams for the first time. Here's some of the things that we learned as we implemented a remote work culture. Regular meetings help. I'm not talking about meetings for the sake of meetings, but a routine team meeting can really help keep the team focused while fostering that connection that's going to be needed. Lead by example. Our team, our CEO made it known that video was going to be a part of our culture, and its use along with instant messaging was going to be non-negotiable. Those who came up with excuses ended up on video anyway, and once they got past the initial resistance, the benefits became so self-evident that it became self-sustaining. Corporate IM, it can be incredibly useful for quick communications, and that presence feature just helps us all know what's available if we want to spontaneously get together. So that can be that's still possible, you just do it with different tools. And lastly, we've created ways to connect with our virtual colleagues. On the software business, we have people literally spread across the entire US. So we've done things like virtual happy hours. We use our team spaces to share good news, like interesting things we're reading, learning, working. We call that one our Friday feedback, but we load it up all the time. Things like books, cool pictures, new products we're trying, stuff we're reading, podcasts, whatever. We found that it has helped us get to know each other better and strengthened our team no matter where we're located. So now I want to dig into your questions. If you haven't already, put your questions in the Q&A panel. Nate is going to stop the recording, and Mary's going to feed me the questions, and then we're